We're here. Hi, you guys.
Hi.
Rob
Hi,
Reiner.
Rob.
I'm with Phil Donahue and Marlo Thomas, good old friends. We're at the 92nd Street Y, and I got to say, Phil, I don't know if you remember, but I was on your show, and you were in Ohio, in Akron. I did an appearance on your show. I was one of the 8 billion guests that you got to interview over the years.
Right.
And Marlo, I did That Girl. I was on That Girl. I think 2 or 3 times. So I know you guys from a million years ago, and I'm so happy to welcome you and be able to talk about your new book, which is called, there it is, #1 on Amazon for new books right here, What Makes a Marriage Last.
Pretty exciting. And you're in it. You and Michelle are in it, and you're married this month, 31 years?
That's right. We're married in May 19th. It'll be 31 years, and you guys are 40 years, right?
On the 21st of May, 2 days after you.
Yeah. So 40 years, you've been married 40 years.
Right.
And from what I understand, and this I've heard, you guys have never done anything together, have you?
No.
No.
Yeah.
So what made you decide at this point that you wanted to, you figured, well, I'm married 40 years, it probably is going to last, and it probably won't be destroyed by working together.
Exactly. I think we got to know each other well enough to say, okay, we won't kill each other if we do a project together. Because I think when we started, I'm a type A, he's a type A. He ran his show, I ran my show. We figured we're probably not the best combination, but it turned out that we are somehow.
We did. Actually, I had a wonderful time and still having it during the pandemic, just watching her, I mean, I got a front row seat to Marlo Thomas's daily life. She's a water bug. I'll tell you, she is everywhere, doing 5 things at once, and I'm even in some of them. So it's, it's been pretty nice.
I think this is a test. This, it's a horrible thing that most people are going through.
Right.
And it's wonderful that we can have a book like this, which celebrates marriage, celebrates life, and is so uplifting to read in the midst of everything that's going on. But I do believe that this pandemic and all this is a test for a lot of marriages, because if you really have to love the person you're with to spend 24 hours a day, every day with each other.
And want to hang out with them. You can love, I have people in my life that I love that I would not want to hang out with all the time. Yeah. So to be able to I want to hear what he has to say. And he's very interested in my opinion of things. I mean, he right away comes into where I am and says, you got to read this, and he'll read me something from the New York Times, or I'll come and read something to him. So we're very interested in what the other one thinks of something that's impressed us. And that's a fun exchange as well,
And she's doing the, she likes drama or comedy. And I'm still a primetime news guy,
he's a news junkie, and I love comedy. So after he's watched the news and we're just, finally too depressed to go to bed from the news, we decide we're going to watch a comedy. We'll watch Elaine May's New Leaf. We watch Albert Brooks's Defending Your Life. All these great, funny, and old ones,
No, they're laugh out loud.
Mel Brooks, To Be or Not to Be. I've not seen Phil laugh that loud out loud before. It was just a great comedy.
Well, I mean, if it wasn't so sad what was going on now, it would be funny. But it's it's good that you have that. So what, at this point in your 40 years together, what made you decide we're going to do this book?
I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I wanted to, I've never had this much time to observe Marlo. I mean, she's always doing something, and I guess I am too. And so this is a whole new feature of our relationship.
Is to do something together, because we always felt we couldn't. And when we were talking about what do we do for our 40th anniversary, how will we celebrate it? We'll have a party, we'll take a cruise. And then we said, it would be interesting. People have always asked us about our marriage, and we've always, not wanted to jinx our marriage. So we've never talked about it, ever, in any interview. Yeah. And so we thought, what might be interesting is to find out what's the secret sauce of what makes a marriage last. And Phil said, okay, I'll do it, but I'm not talking about our marriage. Well, of course, once we sat down with people like you and Michelle, and you were talking and then we were talking, it was kind of like a double date. It couldn't be you just talking. So we had a real conversation, and we began to tell stories from our marriage. And a lot of people have said they were surprised that we did that, but it's what makes the book rich, I think, because we spoke as friends.
Right.
We weren't reporters. I guess we thought we would be reporters, but
and I got to know her better. I mean, that's hard to understand, but it's true.
Yeah, that's the question I have, because you, like you say, you never wanted to reveal, you know,
Right.
what was really going on in your marriage. You figured I'll interview these couples, and I think there's like 40 or 41 couples
Right.
in the book.
Right.
And then you sit down with them on a double date, and then you find yourself talking about your own marriage. You can't
Right.
avoid it. And
That's
so
correct.
what did you discover about each other in those talks that you might not have known?
Well, one of the things that I discovered was that I didn't realize certain habits that he knew annoyed me, that he actually stopped. He brought that up. He said, Marlo she always travels with too much luggage. And it's true, I do. I give you that. But I'm one of those people who can't figure it out. I mean, maybe I'll need high heels for an evening. Maybe I'll need hiking shoes. Maybe I'll need, you know, sneakers. Maybe I'll need sandals. So I take like too many pairs of whatever. So was always yelling at me about traveling and my taking too much baggage. You know, all the way in the car, he would be mumbling about it. Then we'd get to the baggage guy, and Phil would say to the baggage guy, do you believe how many bags we have? You know, as if the baggage guy cares, right? So this was constant thing. And then he doesn't do it anymore. And I even forgot that he didn't do it anymore, didn't even register. So we were talking to another couple, and they asked Phil something about things that annoyed him or how he changed. And he said, well, I'll tell you this, I just gave up one day. Why the hell am I driving her crazy about this luggage? It's been 20 years.
Go with it.
She's not going to stop.
Go with it.
He said, so go with it. And I turned to him and I said, oh, I didn't realize you made that decision. I hadn't noticed that.
But
And
don't you think that is what is one of the things that keeps a marriage together, is
Yes.
that over the years, you just learn to accept each other more
Right.
and more, and allow
Right.
each other to be
Right.
who they are. Because
Correct.
if you
That's
keep
exactly.
fighting it, it's like hitting a brick wall. You know you're not going to dramatically change them, so you got to learn to accept them.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, go with it. It's easier.
And
Yeah.
and it's not, don't think you're going to change somebody, and don't have to compromise. Just be accommodating of the other person's differences.
Right.
Like I remember Michelle saying about the two of you, that you're a guy who likes to sit and think and really take his time, and you need that thinking time. And she's like a butterfly running all over the house. And you don't say to her, why don't you sit down a minute? And she doesn't say to you, why don't you get up a minute? So
Yes.
that allowing each other to just be who they are and loving
Yeah,
them
but
for it.
But interestingly, it wasn't always that way at the beginning. Because at the beginning, you keep thinking, ooh, I can change the other person to get them to be more how
Right.
I want. But over the
That's
years,
right.
you say, oh, come on. You know, that's
Yeah.
who they are.
That's who
you
they
know?
are.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
to think you're going to change your partner is to almost doom the relationship,
Yes.
unless
yes.
you change significantly after the
And
wedding.
I love what Patty Smith, John McEnroe's wife, said. She said, too many women I know say he's got great potential. And
Yes.
she said, don't marry potential. The
No.
person you see is the person you got, and don't think that there's something you're going to dig around and pull out some other potential, because that's it.
That's
And that's
exactly
so
right.
true. That's
Yeah,
so
and
true.
I think if you really think about it, when you meet somebody for the first time, you know, you're in the blush of maybe being attracted to them, and there's the chemistry and all that. But everything that other person is, you get.
Right. Right. All of it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Be able to word, but it's all there. And over the years, that person is there. Don't you think?
And they don't leave. They don't leave.
Right.
They don't leave. So now how did you got, first of all, I could say 40 or 41 couples in here, and they go everywhere from, let's say, Jimmy and Rosalind Carter to like LL Cool J and Simone. And how did you decide which couples you wanted to talk to and and all
Well,
of that.
we knew most of our friends are actors and so forth, people like you and directors, and so we wanted to get those that we knew well and that we admired, that we knew their marriages were really good, that we could learn from. But we also wanted to get in some people that we didn't know, like LL Cool J or Holly Robinson Pete, or just people that we didn't know. Joanna and Chip Gaines. They're in another world.
People who wouldn't die on us.
Right.
People who
And that's
had
an interesting question, because now you've got all these couples, and they've all been married for a length of time, some more than others. The Crystals, Billy and Janice, are about to celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary.
And Melissa McCarthy and Ben Falcone have only been married in the teens, so like 17, 18 years. And we thought, that's a good idea, because you've got the Alders at 60 years and the Crystals at 50 years, and then there's 40 and 30. We thought, let's get some young people to understand, is there any difference now from when people were married 60 years and people that were married 17, 18 years? But the truth is, there really is no difference. The same with homosexuals and heterosexuals. Everybody is dealing with the same things: acceptance, accommodation, giving up what you think you need and seeing what you have and loving that. And one of the things that Kira Sedgwick said that I think is so great, she said, you can't go into marriage with a plan B. This is it. You have to really commit to that. And that I thought was really a wonderful way to put that.
And who was it who said that it's more time consuming and complicated to end the marriage than it is to ride it out, be patient.
Bob Woodward's wife, Elsa Walsh, said, I don't understand this need for disruption. All the energy that people put into breaking up, if they could put that back into the marriage in solving the issues, they would have something wonderful to hold on to. But instead they're looking for somebody else to make them happy. And Peter Herman, who's Mariska Hargitay's husband, a really very bright guy, and he said it nicely. He said, if you get married so that the other person will make you happy, you'll fail. He said, the happiness comes from what you build together. When you build something together, this will bring you happiness. But that person is not going to make you happy. And that, he said, is people get, they get disgruntled over their marriage because, well, she was supposed to make me happy. I'm not happy, so I'm getting out of here. I'll find somebody else.
You're responsible for your own happiness.
Absolutely.
And then that person that you're with can make it even better. In other words, it's not going to, change you from unhappy to happy. But if you feel good about yourself, that person can add to it. Two things. My mother and father, I know your mom and dad were married a long time. My mom and dad were married 65 years when my mother passed away, and when they were celebrating their 60th anniversary, they asked my mother, what is the secret to longevity, having a long marriage? And she said, you have to find someone who will stand you. Not somebody you can put up with, but somebody that'll put up with you. And I thought that was really good.
Very good.
It's part of it. It's like the accommodation. You know, it really is.
Right.
Yeah. The thing that's interesting is the people. This book is about long married people. So what you see is whatever challenge there might be, whether it's alcoholism or addiction, the way Jamie Lee Curtis had, or Michael J. Fox and Tracy Poland facing a lifelong disease, or Kira Sedgwick and Kevin Bacon lost all their money, 30 years of savings to Bernie Madoff. Jesse Jackson was unfaithful to his wife and had a baby outside of marriage. There are all these different things that could happen to a couple. Judy Woodruff and Al Hunt had a son with a long health issue that would last, health issues, spina bifida, would last his lifetime. All of these different challenges, and these people came through it because they had made that commitment, and my God, it just made them stronger.
Yes.
And they didn't run away. They weren't looking for the escape route.
And they had no idea what was coming. I mean, that's pretty key. I mean, you really, I guess the people that impressed me were the people who somehow took the punch and rallied from it. And
together.
Yeah. And when the anger subsided, They loved each other.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
still stood
yeah.
together.
It's like that cliche, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Right, right.
So if it's not going to tear you apart, then that will make the relationship stronger. And my good friend Jamie, you mentioned Jamie, she had the great line, then when they asked, what's the secret of keeping a marriage together, she says, don't leave.
Exactly.
You know.
She said another thing that was really stunning. Nobody else in the book said this. She said that she was with a shrink at one point, and the shrink said, "A marriage lasts if according to how much hate you can tolerate."
Yes.
And I said, "Wow." And she said, "Well, you know, if you hate something about your spouse, if you have this moment of this hate," she said, if that scares you and you run away, you know, you weren't able to tolerate that.
Right.
But in fact, we have to learn to tolerate and accept all the feelings that we feel and get through them, you know, to the other side.
Right.
I would have never thought of that. That's what's so interesting about talking to this many people.
Yeah,
Because when you go on if you and Michelle and Phil and I go to dinner, we're not going to spend 2 hours talking about our marriages.
Right.
But because we did this book and the topic was marriage, we did. The four of us talked about marriage.
And we couldn't shut these guests up. I mean, they had real enthusiasm for talking about themselves, about their relationship, and about the fact that it wasn't always smooth sailing.
Yeah.
And we're very candid about it. That surprised me.
I was intimidated, to be honest with you, when I read, because I know George Stephanopoulos and Ali Wentworth. I mean, they're friends, and they talk so openly about their sex life.
I know.
That's what has shocked me. And I know I was emailing Ali earlier today, and I said, you know, you're intimidating. Now I feel like there's pressure on me. I have to have more sex. I'll never live up to that.
Well, they're younger than you.
Oh, okay, that's it. That's the way I'll justify it.
But anyway, it's something to aspire to.
Yes,
yeah. She is just spitfire. I just love
she's
her.
so funny. She's
so funny. She's very funny. Yeah.
What other things did you learn from people that you said, "Oh, I didn't realize that," and maybe it applies to you guys?
Yeah. Well, we learned something that we're now using that you said about James. James Carville.
Oh, yeah. Carville has a cliche, he would call it.
A philosophy, I call it.
Yeah, all right. But it speaks, whenever they're into an argument, and like a lot of arguments, they're going around and around about, you know, tomorrow this will mean nothing, but they're going, he says, kick that can down the road.
It's such a great idea.
You know, it makes you think. And of course, there are a lot of cans on the way.
That's what he said. Every successful marriage has a whole load of cans down the road. He said, people say, we got to lay this on the table. He said, no, you don't. You don't have to lay it on the table. Let it go. It's not that important. You know, Judy Viors, the wonderful children's writer, said, there are certain issues that you won't resolve. So walk around it, step over it, and get rid of it. It's just not worth it.
And who was the couple that said, I can't remember which one it was, but they said, you know, that cliche of never go to bed angry.
Yes.
And they said, it's okay to go to bed angry.
Right.
Because it's not like the marriage will be over, so you'll wake up in the morning and you'll have a different perspective.
That was the male who said that.
It was
the husband of the pair.
Ben Falcone said, I intentionally go to bed angry because I know it'll be over in the morning.
Yeah.
And my friend Letty Pokervin said, I have no desire to sit up all night until somebody confesses something. I'm going to sleep. It'll be gone in the morning.
Yeah, and then you'll wake up and you'll be angry. You'll be angry because you didn't sleep.
Right.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people, though, that believe that you cannot go to bed angry. And the truth is that to sit up all night to pick at something is not going to make it better. So just get over it by the morning.
Okay, well, here's a game. And there's no way we'll know. But 20 years from now, what would you say? Hopefully we'll be around. We don't know. But of the 40 couples, what percent they'll still be together? You think in the 90s, right? Maybe 100%. I don't know.
No. We felt every time we left somebody, we'd say, you know, I can see why that works.
Yeah.
You know, we never said, well, that's never going to last. It always felt like, well, That's really interesting. I mean, Judge Judy is married to a judge, Judge Jerry, and they were married for like 14, 15 years. And her father died, and she said to her husband, who she was always taking care of, she said, now I need somebody to take care of me. My father's gone. He always was my champion. Now I need somebody to take care of me. But they had these arguments about it, and she demanded more, and he said he couldn't do it. Whatever it was, they got a divorce. And they were separated for about a year. He missed her so much, and she missed him so much. They started dating, and they got married again. Wow. And now they've been married another 30 years. Wow. So it was just amazing to me. I thought that was a very romantic tale.
Yeah.
They couldn't fix it. They divorced over it. Then they missed each other so much they came back together. So I said to her, well, did he change? Did you get what you wanted? She said, no. That's it.
The thing. They don't change. You have to accept.
Right, exactly. She said, but I love him and I want to be married to him. She said, and I realized all men are the same except mine has hair. That's what she said. She is a hoot. Yeah, she really is a hoot.
Danny, my father-in-law, always said that humor comes from the heart. That's the humor that's funniest.
Right.
And not long after he told me that, we were sitting at the Thomas round dinner table in the beautiful home on top of Hillcrest Drive. And Phil Silvers told this story. He married late, I believe.
Yeah.
And so he's in his 40s, and they hear his almost brand new daughter screaming in her room. He runs across the hall, opens the door, and runs in and grabs his child, and she's crying, and he's soothing her, and he was very enlightened. He didn't say, oh, you're having a dream, go to sleep. She said, I got lost. And he said, I know, baby, I know. I got lost too. When I was a little boy, what happened? He said, well, I walked down the street, I went to the left, and I went around the corner, I looked up, and I was lost. And the kid said, where was your nurse? So,
what is that appropriate?
I don't know. It came from the heart. That's what I'm trying to say.
I married a comedian. What a surprise, right?
I can't wait to tell that story.
I married a guy who loves to tell jokes. One of the moments in which I really respected and loved him was he was at my parents' dining room table, and all the comedians were there. All of those guys, George Burns and Milton and Sid and Jan and my dad, and they're all telling jokes and we're screaming, laughing. And I didn't really know him that well at that time. And he raised his hand and he said, I've got one. And I thought, oh my God.
Oh, no.
Don't do it. Don't do it, And I honestly, I started to perspire. I thought, oh, God. No. So he gets up, and I forgot what joke he told, but he stood up and he acted it out, and they screamed laughing. And I thought, what guts this guy's got. I mean, really.
You knew that he was in. He was in.
Yeah. I mean, any guy is going to get up, who's going to have to, even if his joke had died, the fact that he had the guts to do that. I mean, it'd be like me getting up and singing.
In all those people. Yeah.
They could have just stared at him.
Did you?
If I'd have known it scared her that much, I wouldn't have gone near it.
Now, Phil, I read that when you had Marlo on your show, right? On your talk show.
Oh yes, that's right.
And you were like immediately attracted to her, no?
I did. I was. I mean, I was immediately when I walked into the green room before the show. Well, I knew immediately. I don't know if you have to be Catholic, but she was an impure thought. And then she got up, and I followed her down the hallway, and I mean, I was certainly my mother would say smitten.
Yes.
And
it's amazing how many of these couples had that initial reaction to each other.
Yeah.
First
Marlo, did you have that feeling with him?
Oh, absolutely.
You were just in your mindset about I'm on the show and I'm gonna
No. It was instant. He walked in, and I swear to God, it was like a Clairol shampoo commercial. It was everything got rosy, and we started flirting on the show. I mean, I was shocked because by that time, I was past that girl. It was 1977. That girl was over. I had done 9 million interviews all those years. And I never flirted with Johnny Carson. I mean, all of a sudden I'm flirting with this man, and it was just crazy. And then the next day he called me and said, "Would you like to go to dinner?" I said, "Well, I've left Chicago. I'm in Denver." Is Denver very far from Chicago? And he said, "Oh, no, it's not far at all." So he came to Denver, and we had dinner, and that was it. That was
history. The rest is history.
Then we went to church.
Yeah. What's interesting, though, is that so many couples that Jamie Lee saw a picture of Chris.
Yes.
On an interview magazine and said, "I'm going to marry that guy." And Billy Crystal saw Janice when he was 17 walk across the beach in a pink bikini and said, "I'm going to marry that girl." Right. I mean, everybody had this. And you, I mean, I love the story about you and Michelle.
Yeah, no, I was single for 10 years after having been married. I figured there's no chance I can never meet anybody. And I was in and out of relationships and making a mess, which became the basis for When Harry Met Sally. And then when we were in pre-production, Barry Sonnenfeld, who was the DP, I'm looking at a cover of the Premiere magazine. There's a picture of Michelle Pfeiffer on the cover. And I said, I'd heard she was getting divorced. I said, maybe I'll call her. She seemed like a nice person. He says, no, you're not going to call her. I have a friend in New York. Her name is Michelle Singer. You're going to marry her.
Wow.
And I said, who is she? What is it? And so sure enough, I didn't know her. I mean, I met her during the shoot. And same thing. Right away, I was like instantly attracted.
I know. I remember you saying that you said to Barry, "Who's that woman across the street?" And he said, "That's Michelle Singer." And you said, "That's Michelle Singer?"
Yeah.
And then you followed them to lunch.
I got into. I wormed my way into lunch.
That's so great. That's so great. Yeah.
So we should. There are people listening and watching, and they may have questions.
Okay.
So we can throw it open. I mean, what are they supposed to do? They hit a button or something, and they there we go. Let me see if I can see what that says. It says, oh, okay. If you have a question for Marlo, you hit that chat thing. That chat thing.
All right.
So we'll get a question. I don't know where it'll come from. You'll tell us what the question is. Who is it?
I think they said they're going to run them across the side.
Oh, they're running. Okay. Well, when the question pops up, I'll read it. I'll try to read it.
Hi, so Amy has a question. Amy, I'm going to unmute you so you can ask your question.
Hi, Amy's my mom. I'm Sydney. I'm taking over for her because I'm 26 and I've had such a hard time meeting somebody. I'm always traveling for work. The guys are so rude. They're not chivalrous. Like, you have the perfect marriage, I see it. I want to know what's your advice for the millennial who really just is having a hard time finding someone the old school way.
Well, my advice is just to be open and really listen to people and hear who they are. And my secret is I wasn't waiting. I didn't ever want to get married. So when I met Phil, it was like a thunderbolt, and what I liked about him, I mean, I really listened to him. And one of the first things he said to me was, "I'd like to talk to you about your mother." This was before the interview. And I thought, my mother? Nobody ever asked me about my mother. They wanted to know about my famous father.
This would be on the air, I would say.
Just before going into his show. And I thought, nobody's ever asked me about my mother, just my famous father. So I was right away kind of interested in a man who has a talk show who wants to talk about my mother, not my father. And there were little steps along the way of things that I noticed about him that were different from the things that other qualities of the other men I had dated. But also there was that chemical reaction. And I know it's very frustrating when people say, "You'll know," because you think, "Oh, don't give me that." But it's true. You kind of know.
I do think, though, that millennials have it much more difficult in a way than we did, because I have a daughter who's in her 20s, she's 22, and she talks about exactly what you're talking about, which is, first of all, there's dating apps, there's all kinds of, social media things where you don't really get to, and look, we're talking through social media now. I mean, it's hard to connect with somebody and really feel that person. People would rather text, or they go on Facebook, or they or whatever, rather than just actually meet and meet a person in the old-fashioned way.
Right.
And I think it's harder for millennials. I really do.
It's true.
And when good-looking women, like our caller here, say they just can't meet anybody, I mean, I have to say, relax. You're not going to be single forever.
Unless you want to be.
Yeah, that's right.
But the thing is, what Rob is saying, aside from all the apps and all that, I wonder if you can get the same kind of chemical charge as you can when you see somebody in person. I wonder if over the Zoom you're going to feel that chemical thing. That's an interesting thing, because a lot of the chemistry is also about scent. It's about physicality.
Yeah.
So I don't know that you can get that on the app.
But you'll still find that it'll have, you know, my grandmother used to have a great expression, and it was, if you don't look, you find.
That's right.
And so, you know, it is, you know, just go about your life, and it'll happen. You'll find.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good luck. Good luck.
Else do we have? Yeah, good luck. Who else? What else do we have?
Nicole has a question. I'm going to unmute you, Nicole.
Hi, I was just wondering, what's been the hardest part about being quarantined together for so long?
Marlo's made it a lot easier for me. I mean, if you're going to be quarantined, you want to be with Marlo. I mean, she's...
Thank you, sweetheart.
Well, I mean, it's true. I mean, it's a small thing, but when we look at movies at night, she makes popcorn.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, she's not asking for a Nobel Prize for that, but it's a little thing and it adds up, and I'm impressed with her.
Thank you, honey. I think the hardest part, though, is being worried. That's what's bothered me. I mean, I'm worried when the groceries come and we have to wash them off with Clorox, and I'm worried when we want to go out for a little walk, but then I have to get in the elevator where other people were. This quarantine isn't just about what's going on between the two of us. It's about what we're feeling about everything else that's going on, and that's been worrisome for me. I'm worried. You know, we're what they call elderly, and I want us to stay healthy. We are working out with our trainer by FaceTime a couple of times a week, so we're trying to do everything, you know, to stay healthy. But I think, to me, that's the hardest part. We don't get on each other's nerves really, because we have a lot of space. He has his own study and I have my own study. And I think everybody needs to find their corner. I mean, I've talked to friends of mine who don't have their own studies, but one of them got taken over the dining room. That's their workspace. The other one's taken over the living room or the bedroom, and that's their workspace. So I think one of the big things is to make your own workspace so that you're not on top of each other, hearing each other talking on the phone and being in the way.
I want to ask you guys, is one of you more of a homebody than the other? Which one do you say?
Well, you know, Marlo went on the road for, I thought it was like about 6.5 years.
No, it wasn't.
Well,
but anyway.
she was the star of
6 Degrees of Separation.
6 Degrees of Separation.
Yeah.
And how long was it? It was a long time.
Yeah, it was 8 months. But we went back and forth.
Yeah. And I flew to wherever she was whenever I could. But that was certainly no fun, not for me.
Well, how are you answering what's the question?
Well, what I want to know is, because of the quarantine, you're both at home. And for me, I mean, I can just speak personally. I don't mind it because I like to be at home. I like being a homebody. I mean, I am a homebody, so I like it.
I thought he was going to admit to it, but he really is a homebody, much more of a homebody than I am. I'm a homemaker. I make everything lovely and inviting and all that stuff. But I found that I've learned something from this. I don't need to go running around so much. Yeah. A lot of these meetings that I'm getting up in the morning and fixing my hair, putting on my makeup, putting on clothes, jumping in an Uber and go, I can do this. Yeah. Why am I driving myself crazy? So this has been a great learning experience for me personally, I can get off the buzzsaw, you know, for a little bit.
But it's just one of the evidence features of this pandemic that we're going to have less driving,
right?
Fewer accidents,
right?
less smog and
yeah.
you know, and
Life is going to change just tremendously.
yeah, it's unbelievable. The more you
there's-
think about it, the more you realize, holy cow.
I mean, I can't imagine going inside of a theater. I love the theater, and I love working in the theater. That's a terrible thought.
Yeah.
You know, everybody used to worry, and as you know, we were raised in Hollywood, that television was going to kill movies.
Right.
And now movies are going to be kind of killed, and television is going to save us.
Yes.
Because we're going to be able to play it on TV and on Zoom and on Netflix and Hulu and Apple and all of it. It's just an amazing thing to have seen that shift.
Yeah.
You know, it's really amazing.
All right. Who else do we have? Well, how much time do we have for more questions? Let's see. Well, we got a little bit more time. We can do more.
Good.
Sarah, I'm gonna unmute you.
Hi.
I was wondering, Marlo, you were so independent for so many years. What was the hardest part of transitioning into a couple at a later age?
That's a really good question. I think it was I had to become less selfish. I mean, I was used to running my own life and doing what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. And I had done that for 42 years. And when I got married to a man who was very much as active as I always was, I needed to do the accommodation. I needed to say, okay, wait a minute now. He needs this now more than I need this other thing. So I'm going to shift over, I'm going to pivot, and we'll do the thing that he really needs. That's a change. That's something that comes with committing to being in a relationship where both people are full persons. I was always afraid of getting married because I thought it was an institution for 1.5 persons, where one person was the one with the dream and the other one was sort of as somebody said the other day, one person's the flower and one person's the gardener. Well, I didn't ever want to be the gardener. I didn't want to marry a gardener. I wanted to find a flower and be the flower too. So that takes a lot of accommodating of those kinds of personalities, not just having 2 careers, but having 2 big, strong personalities. You have to learn to accommodate that. And it's one of the things we love about each other. I wouldn't want to be with somebody who didn't hold their own in a conversation, you know, didn't have their own life force, because you get energy from the other person's life force and you give off your energy to that life force. And that's, I think that is another thing, you know, another pillar of what makes a happy marriage.
And I got rid of my jealousy.
Yes.
That was a huge issue for me. And as I look back on it, I mean, it's draining. It takes the energy out of your body. But, you know, Marlo, first of all, never gave me much of the jealousy I had was in my head. She did a movie with Chris Christopherson.
That did it.
With a love scene that I thought was never going to end. And after that, you know, I said, come on now, grow up. And getting rid of that is a huge energy saver. And it takes a lot of weight off your shoulder and makes you you can devote more energy to making the relationship grow. So that's one of the real pluses of my marriage to herself.
But and also a long marriage, we get to know each other. Yeah.
And you're lucky enough to have enough money that you can hire a gardener.
To tend to these 2 roses.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, who else is out there?
Barbara, I've unmuted you if you want to ask your question.
Sure.
Yes, thank you. I have a sense that, Marlo, that your parents had a long marriage. I don't really know about Phil's parents, but of the people in the book, what did they learn from their parents? Did most of them have long-term marriages? Or?
No, that's interesting. It's very interesting that you ask that, because all of these marriages are long, but they came from all kinds of different situations. Allie Wentworth's parents were married, I think, 1 or 2 years. You know, many of them, Phil's parents were married until his dad died, and my parents as well. So but a lot of them, no, they came from, Jamie Lee Curtis said she's a product of something like 14 marriages. Her mother and her father and then her stepfather, there were a million marriages. And she has a very strong, robust, good marriage. So I don't think that affected them in the longevity. What it did was it showed all of us what we liked in our parents' marriage and what we didn't like. So we tried to take what we liked and not take what we didn't like. So I think that was what came from those marriages. But there wasn't a feature that if they came from a happy marriage, they had a happy marriage, because that wasn't true.
Yeah. Jamie Lee Curtis and Chris, they got married in my house. And,
nice.
we're good friends and everything. And Tony Curtis, whose real name was Bernie Schwartz, he was there. And he has 6 kids from 3 different marriages.
Wow.
And they were all in the room. And he had never seen all of his kids in the same room. In the same
wow.
place. And he looked around and I said, what do you think about this? Tony says, Bernie Schwartz has been a very busy fellow. That's all he could think of.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
you don't know.
amazing.
I mean, you look at your marriage, either your parents' marriage was a model, or that's not what I want. I want to have something that, that's
either
better.
way, it's a model.
Yeah, exactly.
A do and don't model.
Right. Okay. By the way, that was Barbara Hershey, but not the Barbara Hershey, was it, or no?
No, I could tell by the voice it wasn't Barbara Hershey, the actress.
I know, that's what I
Yeah,
thought.
at first when I saw her name, I thought, oh, maybe it's her, but no, that wasn't the voice. Barbara Hershey has that sexy voice.
Yeah. Well, this one had a sexy voice, but not the Barbara Hershey we know. Okay, who else do we have?
Okay, Debbie, I've unmuted you.
Hi.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Hi. I just wanted to say, Phil, I've met you a couple of times and you're just so wonderful, so warm.
Thank you.
Marlo, I've met you once. I pretty much blew it. I babbled through the whole thing. It was completely unexpected. And then I thought what I had really wanted to tell you was your book, Growing Up Laughing, was one of the best books I have ever read.
Thank
and
you.
I felt terrible that I hadn't said that. Everyone listening, you need to read it. It's wonderful.
Thank you. I love doing that book. I couldn't wait to get up every morning and write another chapter. I just loved it. It was all my life of growing up in comedy. I just loved it.
It was fabulous, fun and poignant and everything else.
Thank you so much.
I'm no longer married, but I am so looking forward to reading this book.
Are you married now, did you say?
I am no longer married.
Uh-huh.
But I'm very much looking forward to reading this book.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you.
She brought up something that I know that you've gotten your whole life, because I've gotten it, which is, what was it like growing up in that house? Was it always a million laughs? I always got that question. Obviously, you wrote a whole book about it, so
right.
It sticks.
Well, what I was saying, that our home, for some reason, was a center of that particular group, of George and Milt and Sid and Jan Murray and Harry Crane, who was a great comedy writer. All those guys always were at our dinner tables. So that I did grow up in a house of laughter. I really did. And my father was very funny. And what was great about my dad was not only was he funny, but he was a good audience. If we told a joke, and he loved us, he'd always say, "Does anybody hear anything funny?" We'd tell him something, he would fall over laughing. He loved to laugh, and he especially loved to laugh at his kids. And the one thing that made me laugh about him was he would laugh at the joke, and then he'd say, "It'd be better if you start with the rabbi." He'd always edit the joke so we'd get a better laugh, which made me laugh. One time I was on David Letterman, and he said to me, "Can you do a spit take?" At which my father, made very famous. And so I said, sure. I mean, I had never done a spit take, but I thought, how hard can it be? I'll drink a little water, I'll spit out the water. So he gives it to me and I said, well, you have to have a setup. He said, oh, I said, so I whispered in his ear, ask me how long I've been married to Geraldo. I said, okay. So he said, we loved it. He got it. So he said, how long have you been married to Geraldo? And then I took the water and I spit it out, and it just kind of fell out. It wasn't good at all.
Oh, you spit it on Geraldo.
No, I spit it out. So afterward, my father called me and he said, honey, you don't spit, you blow.
Yeah.
I
You gotta
didn't
get
know
the
that.
spray. You gotta get
That's
that
right.
spray.
It's got to blow, but I spit it. I said, I thought it was called a spit take, not a blow take.
Anyway, yeah. So who else? Who else is out there? We have
Andrea, I've unmuted you.
Okay.
Hi, I have a question. I know that statistically, a lot of times in a marriage, children come in from a former marriage. And I'm wondering, in your case, how you dealt with that, mainly Marlo, I guess. I know that Phil, if I remember correctly, had a fairly large family. And what was it like for you adjusting to that?
Well, it was pretty stunning. I mean, I moved in with a man with 4 sons. He was raising his 4 sons on his own.
My daughter was with her mother.
His daughter was with her mom. And I had lived alone in Beverly Hills in my own house, 2 dogs, no children, never wanted to get married. And all of a sudden I'm marrying a guy with 4 children, which my mother said, what a joke on you, truly. So I was a little bit intimidated at first, thinking, I don't want to influence them in the wrong way. I'm not their mother. They've got a mother, they've got a dad, and I made a decision I'd be a good friend. And then as time went on, we realized that since we were the parents in the house, that I would need to become a part of the decision-making entity. And so we worked it out so that the children, and they weren't little children, they were like 10 up, but they were very welcoming. And they were very much like their dad. They're interesting and curious. They were loving. They'd heard of Free to Be You and Me, so I wasn't an alien. It wasn't hard. It was just, it wasn't bad. It was hard. I just wanted to do the right thing. And being a perfectionist, I also didn't want to affect them in a bad way. Because I found myself saying, well, you really should wash that dish. And you can't have a pizza under the bed for too many days. So I was finding my way of trying to help them and also not not overpower them.
Did they accept you right away?
They kind of did because of the fact I think that they knew me from Free to Be You and Me, so I wasn't a complete stranger. They did more than other people I've known who've had to deal with stepchildren, and also maybe because they were all boys.
Tell them what, who was it said that we like it when you're here?
His oldest son, Michael, said to me, we like it when you're here. Dad has less spazzes. So Phil was happier when I was around, obviously, but than being by himself. And also, I got them to do different things. Like Phil said to me the first year, he said, I'd like you to make a Christmas for me and my boys. Ever since my divorce, we've always gone skiing and done things like that for Christmas. Would you make a Christmas for me? Well, me, Miss Homemaker. I went to Chicago's, what was it called? I forgot. Marshall Fields, and bought like a zillion lights. They didn't have anything. So I went and got everything. And he said to me, now don't expect them to get involved. They're not really into this, but I think it'll be wonderful. Anyway, he was completely wrong. They got totally involved. They popped popcorn. We put berries in the popcorn, and we made a garland, and they did everything. They were dying to have a Christmas at home. So I think by my doing those kinds of things with them and for them, that bonded us in a way that I don't think would have been there had I not, taken over in terms of, making the home work.
Right. All right, I think we'll have time for like 2 more questions.
Okay.
So let's just do 2 more, and then we'll,
Well, one of the reasons we don't take many questions is we talk too much.
No, we've had some good ones. There's been really good ones.
Good.
Okay, we'll take a question from the chat. Sue asks if you can define commitment.
Commitment.
Good question. Define commitment.
Can you define commitment, honey?
Wow. Oh, dear. Commitment is when you're feeling very jealous and insecure, and you call your spouse on the phone.
Oh, you're going to tell this story.
And she answers, all alone in her hotel room.
No, I think think you're talking about that. That's not commitment. That's
the end of jealousy.
Yeah, that's assurance.
Trust. It's
Yeah,
about trust.
that's
Yeah.
trust and assurance.
The
But I
commitment.
think, to me, commitment is not looking for an escape route. It's what Kira Sedgwick said so completely succinctly. There is no plan B. This is it. So when the going gets tough, instead of looking for the escape route, what you do is to sit down and figure out together how to overcome this, whatever this challenge is, whatever it is, whether it's somebody's jealousy, whether it's losing all your money to Bernie Madoff, whether it's a disease, whatever it's a big disappointment in your career, whatever it could be, that you can face it together and then come through it. And I think, Tracy Poland said, you've got to give your spouse the benefit of the doubt. There are all these times in our lives when things happen and you build it up in your mind and make it even worse, when just step back and say, oh, he didn't mean to say that. She didn't mean it like that.
But that's what I used to do.
Yes. And
thanks to Marlo, I don't do that anymore.
Thanks to me, you did it on your own. But
Well,
commitment is also about all these couples. I mean, so many of these couples went to couples therapy. Bryan Cranston and his wife, Robin Dearden, Neil Patrick Harris and David Burka, Ron Howard and Cheryl Howard. They've gone to therapy.
That's evidence of commitment.
Yeah, that's a complete evidence of it. Let's work it out. We've got an issue. Let's figure it out. Let's get an interpreter. And that was an interesting thing that Bryan Cranston and his wife said. You're not looking for a referee. You're looking for an interpreter. Someone to say, oh, that's what you mean by that. Al Roker and his wife, Deborah Roberts.
Mm-hmm.
Several couples in the book have been through couples therapy. And that truly is, again, about commitment.
Good one. All right, we got one more question. I hope it's a beauty.
Hey, Robert, I've unmuted you.
Oh, I have a question. Hello?
Yeah,
Yes.
Robert Pincus.
Yes. I am from Memphis. And remember when your father was forced behind St. Jude's Hospital in the 50s. And while the question is not directly about your book or what you've been discussing, it's about many of the same qualities needed in a marriage. And I'm wondering whether you could talk a little about that and the similarities and the qualities that are needed.
Well, I think you're talking about values and
Right.
the value of caring about other people other than yourself, getting outside of yourself, noticing. My dad used to always say to us when we were children that noticing was one of the biggest things we could do as people. Notice other people. Notice the guy who's fallen down on the street. Notice the person that doesn't have enough to eat. Notice a person who's not feeling well and help them. Notice things, notice people, whether they're close to you or not close to you. And I think that's pretty much what my dad did with his whole life, was notice that other people needed something. And for St. Jude, it was children with hopeless diseases. But I think in marriage, it's about noticing. It's about really listening. If you don't really listen, you won't get the nuance of what somebody is saying to you. They don't necessarily.
Tell them about two kinds of people.
What are they? Oh, my dad said there's two kinds of people: the givers and the takers. The takers sometimes eat better, but the givers always sleep better. And I think that, again, it's about values.
It's about having a large sphere of concern, not just worried about yourself, but the ability to concern yourself with others.
That's right.
You have to have that to make a marriage work.
Right. Empathy, be able to put yourself in the other person's shoes. I'm going to just tell one little story of what I think is, to me, is a nugget here about Phil and about me and Phil. And he talked about 6 degrees of separation. When I was offered that part to take it on the national tour, I had never been on a national tour, and I wasn't sure that we'd be able to handle it in a marriage. But it was a wonderful play, a wonderful part that I really was dying to play. Jerry Zaks was going to be directing it, the original director. It was under the aegis of the Lincoln Center. Everything was right about it, except it was 8 months. And we'd been married about 12, 13 years at the time. And I said to Phil, I really want to do this. I told him all the reasons why, but I'm a little scared that it would damage our marriage. What do you think? Tell me the truth of how you feel about this. And he said to me, if I needed this in my career as much as you do, I would do it. And it so touched my heart because he could have messed with my head right then. He could have said, I wouldn't do it. I don't think it's a good thing. And I've had many friends, or several friends, who've been divorced, who've said to me that they realized as they look back on their lives with that mate, that when they gave them advice that was convenient for them, not good for the other person. And that is such a trust, that gift he gave me of trust, that I said to myself, this is a man who will always have my back. He didn't say to me, I don't think it's good for us. He said to me, we'll work it out. If I needed it like you need this, I would do it. That gift that he gave me has me so bonded to him. He's a man who loves me and wants me to have what I want. And I hope to God I do that for you. Because
well, you do. And that's what helped me get rid of this burden I call jealousy. I did lose it. I mean, I lost the jealousy, and it made the marriage, it made the marriage much easier, much more fun, much closer. It's amazing.
When I'm half Sicilian. I'm not, without jealousy. I mean, women are always good. Oh, Phil, you're just the greatest and all that. Everybody has it. If you're not jealous about your mate a little bit, I mean, you're not really in love, I don't think.
Danny would tell the story. I'm going to borrow your father again.
What?
He was at his wedding, his own wedding, to his lovely new bride,
Sicilian wife,
Rosemarie Casanetti.
Right.
And he raised his glass in front of the whole group there gathered. Rosie, I love you. I will love you always. I will love you forever. I will never cheat on you. You are my one and only. Forever I will love you. And he turned around and his new father-in-law was seated in the corner. And he said, that's all right.
See, that's Phil. That's why never to cheat. You've got it's Sicilian blood over here. They're known for vendettas.
That's all right.
My grandfather was a comedian too. All comedians in my family.
Well, this has been great. I've been loved talking to you guys. This has been fun. And remember, everybody, what makes a marriage last? What makes it right here. It's a great book. There are great couples in there with wonderful stories. So go out and get it or order it online. You can't go out, but order it online. And thank you very much.
Rob.
I love talking with you guys.
Thank you, Rob. And thank you and Michelle for being in the book. Your story is wonderful.
Absolutely.
You are a pal. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.